Catherine Green on the right of picture. Watch the getaway to start with, and after that she flew. She had opened up a huge gap on the first lap. She was lapping 5 seconds quicker than the people behind her in the early wet stages, and away she went, leaving these kids to wrestle and fight and pummel their way around with some fairly amazing manoeuvres. This is Harry Hartley breaking down into Mansfield. That was one of his favourite manoeuvres throughout the race because he was undoubtedly outpowered down the straight. This is what happened when they hit the straight. Joe Irving, number 33, swept by back into second place. And then under braking, Luke Hedger makes a move. So too Joe Francis on the yellow machine, number 40. Poor Harry Hartley finds himself eased back to 5th. So he decides to respond once again on the drop into Mansfield. And then straight away Joe Francis squeezes back past through the chicane. And this crew were just going to keep on knocking little bits of paint off one another right the way around Cadwell Park. Harry Hartley losing out in a straight line. Luke Hedger holding second place for a while. And then once again being seen off by Joe Francis. And then that huge high side from the unlucky Taz Taylor puts him down and out at the mountain. The red flag goes out, and it's victory from Derbyshire's former Plymouth University student, Catherine Green. Well done, lass. A great start for number 22, Jason O'Halloran, but a pole position. Alongside him comes elbows himself, Keith Farmer, and then neck and neck through Coppice. What an exciting start in the rain here, but it's Farmer who outmuscles his rival into Charlie's and takes the lead. O'Halloran then comes under a lot of pressure from Adam Jenkinson and Joe Burns. Burns goes through, Jenkinson then squeezes past at Park Curve into third place. Joe Burns takes off in the rain after Keith Farmer and closes down the leader as John Ingram, number 56, makes a brave move on Cody Nally's CN Racing Honda. Those two, in fact, will go nip and tuck at one another for a while. Here they are coming down into Park behind Gary Johnson, and it's Cody Nally who makes a move. Gary Johnson looking strong in the early stages. As the track begins to dry, he loses out and begins to just hemorrhage places back down the field. A mistake for Lee Costello, he goes straight on. And then this huge lunge on the penultimate lap from Joe Burns going into Park Curve. Can't hold it, goes off onto the grass. Keith Farmer springs off into the lead. Joe Burns somehow keeps it upright, and then moments later, an angry Keith Farmer allows himself to lose out of road, run out of road, go straight on at the chicane. But he recovers to win the race ahead of Joe Burns and Jason O'Halloran. Off the start, it was a terrific getaway from the lad on pole position, Jake Dixie Dixon, and he heads up into the uphill left-hander with Lee Jackson right behind him on the Chris Walker Racing School Kawasaki. Ben Burke, the championship leader from 5th row of the grid, was struggling mid-pack. A huge moment for Jake Dixon, but he recovered with astonishing courage, broke the lap record, caught Lee Jackson back up and swept past the Kawasaki back into the lead. But then he overdid it again a couple of laps later. This time he went down hard, crashed out of the lead. Lee Jackson was then comfortable at the front, but the battle for second place was resolved when trouble for Johnny Blackshaw on the white Smithson Gloucester Triumph. The bike broke down on him and he had to go out. Then a red flag after James Lodge's crash, and the result was called.
Well, they left the line all as one. Phil Atkinson it was that got the whole shot in towards Coppice Corner as Freddie Peck gave chase in the early stages through the first lap, and it was Rob Guyver that hit the front, just outbraking Phil Atkinson in towards Park Corner. These two made a little bit of a break over the third place rider, but Rob Guyver got it all wrong coming over the mountain, and that allowed Phil Atkinson through to take the lead, and he dictated proceedings for a few laps before Rob Guyver decided that he wanted to slice back at the front, just left his braking a little bit too late into Park Corner, and Phil Atkinson dived back up the inside. Tommy Haywood, the local rider, crashed out of it, hopefully without injury. We saw that Will Leaning also crashed on the exit of the link chicane. But the battle for the lead hotted up as James Egan and Chrissy Rouse started to dust it up for third position, just costing themselves a little bit of time. But Phil Atkinson and Rob Guyver battled it out at the front. Chrissy Rouse managed to dispose of the challenge of James Egan, and as they headed out into the final stages, Guyver took the lead. He went a little bit too early, nearly high-sided coming out of Mansfield corner, but Phil Atkinson couldn't capitalise on that one, and it was Rob Guyver that took the victory, and Chrissy Rouse just edged out Phil Atkinson for second.
Off the start, a great start by number 81, James Egan. He flew off the line. Chrissy Rouse in the bright blue leathers followed him through, and it was Rouse who out-muscled the South African into Charlie's and took the lead early on. And then braking hard down to Park Curve, James Egan retook the lead from Chrissy Rouse. Could he hold his line? Yes, he did. But then Rouse cleared off at the front. Rob Guyver began to regroup and broke through into third place. As it got drier, he launched an assault down the dry line into Park Curve. He moves past Egan into second place. Rob Guyver, the championship leader, moving on as two riders, that one Piers Hutchins, go down at the hairpin where it was getting particularly damp after another bout of rain. And three abreast coming down the main straight. There's Christian Elkin, number 8, making a move past James Egan, and then down goes number 22, David Fuller. Spins out at the foot of the mountain, and problems from just behind him, rolling through behind him already. Chrissy Rouse, the race leader, has a technical issue with the Triumph on the penultimate lap, and as the Geordie boy rolls to a halt, it's Rob Guyver who inherits the lead and his second race win of the weekend. Guyver takes it and extends his lead in the 2012 championship. Elkin finishes in third place ahead of Egan, Whedon and Tom Haywood. Well done, Rob Guyver.
Challenge saw Robbie Brown get the whole shot under number 34, and from there on he was never ever led as he stamped his authority on the race. Mike Edwards did his best, but it wasn't to be, and that was as good as it got for Spike Edwards as they thread their way through Park Corner in towards the braking zone. James Folkard, who won the previous two rounds, he just got the better of the former champion Darren Fry and led the rest of the field through. Mark Cheetham in the all-black leathers challenged briefly earlier on as the scrap behind them saw Marty Nutt and Eddie Smith, their number 8, going through. But Nutt, who didn't get a particularly good start, but he managed to get himself up through the order on a lap-by-lap basis in the scrap that was for the lower leaderboard positions. Cheetham ahead of the number 38 machine of Scott Adam were battling it out. Dennis Hobbs tried to put a move on Mike Edwards, but the veteran had the measure of it as the team celebrated and win for 34. That was Robbie Brown. Spike Edwards just took second ahead of Dennis.
This is how the Ducati 848 challenge kicked off. Number 34, Robbie Brown, getting the perfect start from pole position. What a great start, surging through for number 43, James Folkard. And it was Folkard who pushed really hard and put the pressure on in the early laps, even with those odd spots of rain. Outbreaking Robbie Brown down into Park Curve. He couldn't quite hold his line. Robbie Brown cut back through, and as they hit Chris Curve, Folkard brilliantly cut right back to the inside, swooped across in front of the Stoke-on-Trent rider and retook the lead. They dropped down through the gooseneck. It wasn't going to end there though, because Robbie Brown got great drive out of Barn and along the main straight. Through Coppice he retook the lead. And then a massive moment for number 43, James Folkard, at the bottom of Mansfield. Just hangs on to it and stays second. And then an even huger moment in Charlie's for the race leader, having just set the fastest lap of the weekend. Robbie Brown, despite his father imploring him to slow down, nearly bins it. But he stays on board and wins it for the second time this weekend at Cadwell Park. Folkard in second place. Third place for the dashing Dennis Hobbs, ahead of Mike Edwards with Marty Nutt in fifth place. But a good ride for Robbie Brown, the championship in sight.